Hey, what's going on? We are getting into the NBA preseason action, and it's got me all giddy for this season. Sunday, I spent some time watching some preseason because, well, my favorite NFL team, the Vikings, they lost again, so I was on to the NBA for the rest of the day, and I watched some Celtics and Sixers, as well as some Pacers and Grizzlies, which both ended up being good games. And no, I don't have any big takes for you from that one play I saw in the middle of the second quarter of the preseason game. The one thing that did stick out to me, though, was that Jason Tatum's strength, at least for one half of a preseason game, looked improved, but we have plenty of time to discuss that. Today's episode is about the curveballs the NBA season brings us every year. Last year, some curveballs were the Heat, most famously in the playoffs, Ja Morant and his gun and overall character situation, and Sacramento was another one, came from over the top rope and just pushed Golden State to its limits in the playoffs, which nobody would have listened to that before the season. So that leads me to this list. So here are my NBA curveballs for the 23-24 season. But first, cue the music. Hello and welcome into the Box Out Podcast. As you already know, we are going to throw some NBA curveballs out there into the nether for the 23-24 season. First up, number one on the list, the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's right. Now, out of the three teams I'm going to give you here today, this is the least of the curveballs, but I do think they are worth discussing. The Thunder are a better team than we might be accustomed to this season. Every year and every season it's been Shea is great, but Sam Presti, he isn't in win now mode yet, so it's still time to gain more assets and lose more basketball games. But last year, they finally showed some real promise with Shea, Josh Giddey, Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Isaiah Joe even, the other Jalen Williams. And this year, you get Chet Holmgren, who may struggle some with strength against some centers, but is super talented defensively and has shown skill offensively as well in pick and roll. And he does have good potential as a pick and pop guy if he gets that three-point shot down pat. I've seen in Summer League he hasn't shot it amazing, but clearly the shot, at least the stroke, looks nice, and the fact that he has the confidence to take it, to me at least, suggests that he thinks he's going to make it at some point. On the NBA level, of course, I know that he shot 39% from three in college on 3.3 attempts per game, so not a big volume, of course, which you don't need him to be a volume shooter, but if he can provide that 5-out spacing for SGA, it's going to open up the floor for him, and it's also going to open up the floor for all the other pieces on the offense as well. Shea could somehow score even more points than 31 tonight on good efficiency. Jalen Williams, the stretch four there for OKC, shows a lot of promise, and he really helps this team play fast, being undersized for the force position, but in today's NBA, obviously making it work, and provides that great spacing, putting a lot of pressure on the weak side and help side defenders. And then also the fact that he can dribble and penetrate from the perimeter as well puts that extra pressure on the defense. Josh Giddey, he's going to probably take another step this year, continue to get better as a scorer, continue to get better as a passer, which he's already an elite passer, it seems, and has been a good player playing off of SGA. I could see his point total getting closer to 20 or at 20 points per game this season, as he's went up from 12.5 his rookie year to 16.6 his second year, 7.8 and 7.9 rebounds in both of those seasons, and 6.4 and 6.2 assists. So just the epitome of solid, and obviously crossing into that next level territory, as he will probably creep towards that 20 points per game scoring average this season. Vasilije Micic, another player who I'm not going to pretend that I've watched all of his tape and film over the years, but what I do know is that he's a two-time EuroLeague champion in 21 and 22, a two-time EuroLeague Final Four MVP in 21 and 22, and a EuroLeague MVP in 2021. That tells you, at the very least, from the get-go, he's not some bum. But looking at his stats over the last three seasons, they've all been 16 to 18 points a game, about 5 assists, a steal a game, and shooting at an efficient clip of 44% and 36% from 3, 87% from the free throw line. And watching the little bit that I have watched, it seems to me that the only question there might be is, can his perimeter defense hold up in NBA pick and rolls, and will he continue to be as good of an offensive steady weapon like he has been in the EuroLeague? Theoretically, he could be a good fit as an NBA kind of veteran point guard, giving you some scoring, some passing, setting the floor up, and managing the offense. So it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up showcasing some of his talents for OKC and he gets shipped off to another team, but also it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up playing a crucial role for this Oklahoma City Thunder team. The Thunder, they already won 40 games last season. DraftKings has them at 44.5 on the over-under win projection for the season. When you take all of what I've said into consideration, I think that they could not only be making the playoffs this season, but they'll threaten for a spot, I think, in the top 5 or 6 in the West. Hitting that over on the win projection is what I plan to do. Next up, a team that has maybe lived in this NBA curveball realm for the last few seasons, and that's right up next here on the Box Out Podcast. My second team that I believe will be one of the curveballs of this NBA season will be the New Orleans Pelicans. On Media Day, responding to a question, Zion Williams, he told the world that he worked on this offseason being, quote, unguardable. Well, someone should tell him that we already knew that stuff, but the real question is, will he hold up for a full regular season and playoffs? He has yet to do so. Williams has only played 114 of a possible 317 games in the last 4 seasons. He and his 2 co-stars, CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram, have only played in a mere 10 of a possible 119 games together since the team acquired McCollum on February 8th of 2022. So Zion has honestly given no reason to expect this to get better health-wise. But my goodness, if you want to see goosebumps, turn on Zion Williams highlights. He, in the similar breath as LeBron in his prime, just moves different on the floor than everyone else. His combination of size, speed, strength, and finesse is incredible and will land him on an All-NBA team this season if he meets the minimum game requirements. I can almost guarantee you. Brandon Ingram also had the opposite effect you want on an NBA player going to play for Team USA. He didn't look amazing while out there trying to fill that almost Carmelo Anthony-esque role, and the team as a whole didn't even come back with bronze. I'm sure BI will be able to be fine this season and bounce back, but it's something to at least mention before the season in case it doesn't go well. I do still really like CJ McCollum, even though he obviously has his problems defensively, and Jonas Valanciunas, who they added from the Grizzlies, is a good pickup, I think, for them. Trey Murphy, he's projected to be back sometime in the back half of November, and he's someone that could be a huge X factor for the Pelicans as well. I really love his game. He's a great two-way player, in which in today's NBA game so invaluable, shooting 41% from 3 and his 6'8", 6'9" frame on 6 attempts, which you just don't get from everybody. You hope the attempts honestly go up this season as long as it stays in similar efficiency. If you're a Pelicans fan, 91% from the free throw line, only on 2 attempts a game, but again, not everyone else is doing that on 2 attempts, and just watching him, you can see it. He's a pretty good player, and this year, if he can come back healthy, he could be even better than we saw last season and maybe takes that next step alongside Josh Giddey, getting closer to that 20 points a game mark. Herbert Jones and Jose Alvarado are other scrappy players on the Pelicans. You'll definitely be seeing an impact made from them. Herbert Jones especially, he's a younger guy, and if he can get that 3 ball knocked down and secure, he will become a mainstay in NBA rotations, I'm sure, for the next 10 years. But Zion Williams, obviously the ultimate X factor in what could lead this group. I, in preparing for this episode, went back and reminded myself of why the Pelicans are this curveball team, and all you have to do is flip on anytime Zion Williamson touches the basketball. He's electric, and the New Orleans Pelicans fans, I believe, if they can see him get on the court, play well, and get through an entire season, they, meaning the Pelicans fans, will have Zion's back again. But to start the season, it's going to be a little weird, especially with the ending of last season and seeing Zion Williamson throw down a windmill dunk in a pre-game, but also tell reporters that he won't play till he feels like himself and feels like Zion. Not discrediting his injury, not discrediting his choices as a man, but at the same time, you have to be aware of the optics of you throwing a windmill dunk and then also telling people at the same time you're not ready to play NBA basketball when your team desperately needs you. DraftKings, they have them at 44.5 wins, just like the Oklahoma City Thunder on the over-under line. If you believe Zion will be healthy enough, I think you got to hammer that over. But if you are anti-Zion and his ability to be healthy, then I would definitely hammer the under. Me, this is probably one I'm going to pass on, but it's certainly a real curveball this NBA season. Last up on my NBA curveballs list, and this one may just have the biggest repercussions on the media outlets this season. It's going to be the Philadelphia 76ers, and the reason why I put them here as a curveball is that the way this season plays out is huge. We are hearing reports Embiid might want out more than ever. There's a report out now that Vincent Goodwill of Yahoo Sports said that Embiid could seek a new NBA home away from Philadelphia, quote, sooner rather than later, end quote. And here is what makes the situation even spicier. The news came out 2 days after he erased processing out of his bio on Twitter, or X, I guess, and removed his location of Philly and put his hometown of Cameroon in its place. ESPN's Ramona Shelburne later reported that Embiid was, quote, happy to be a Sixer, end quote, and that he was merely being, quote, Joel Troll, end quote. Fair enough, Joel, but I think that all of this clearly has an alternative motive. It's setting things up in place for him down the road to request a trade. Joel is so tied to the heartbeat of 76ers fans. He has been what the process led to and is nicknamed the process for it. He has done amazing things in Philly, like winning an MVP and his second straight scoring title at 33 points a game last year. And he has at least been getting into the playoffs consistently, but nothing further than the second round eventually gets old for anybody who cares about winning it all. At some point, this will come to a head, and it'll be sooner rather than later. The more the Harden thing gets dragged out, I don't know how the relationship there could be mended, but I have a hard time thinking whatever they would theoretically trade Harden for will be an upgrade at the number 2 or number 3 spot next to Joel Embiid, depending on how you rank the Harden-Maxey dynamic. So to me, that leaves the 76ers walking into this season right now in no man's land, not knowing if this is the group you're actually going to try to get to the playoffs with, if it's not, and if it's all going to be somehow blown up by February. Maybe if it does all go bad, it doesn't culminate until next summer, but that still leaves 2 years on Joel Embiid's deal plus a player option. Daryl Morey has notoriously waited long periods of time to get the best value in trades. Would that play out with Embiid? Would Morey even be there? Or is he going to get axed / get out of town if this whole Embiid business does go down? There are a lot of question marks surrounding the Philadelphia 76ers. And truthfully, there just aren't many clear answers. Their over-under is 49.5 wins on DraftKings. But between all that mess, this is something that I wouldn't even get close to betting on. I don't believe in James Harden on the Sixers. I don't believe in honestly Joel Embiid on the Sixers either, just because we've seen it for many years in different forms and it's never worked out. Yes, he hasn't had the best supporting cast in comparison to other teams around the league, but at the same time, you won the MVP last season, and you've also had some good teams, a la the 76ers when they got booted by the Kawhi Leonard Raptors. He played awful that series, and that was probably his best team with Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, and that whole crew. And so, as an outsider looking in on the Philadelphia situation, to me, it almost seems like Joel Embiid's time in Philadelphia may have just run its course. That's how much of a curveball I think the Sixers are this season. Thank you for listening in on the Box Out Podcast. I appreciate it. If you made it this far, give us a like, share, subscribe, all of that. Give us a review. Those are really important. The more good reviews we can get, the better. It'll help us blow up some maybe sometime. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for listening to the Box Out Podcast. Cue the music.
Rock the beat.